Hello, noble ones. Welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and recently we reacted to one of the videos posted by Basic Logic. I found another one, and I'm kind of curious. It's only an 8 minutes watch, so without further ado, let's see how it goes.
All the online right are rejoicing with the supposed death of what is being called Woke 1.0.
Whew.
At long last, people, even on the left, are finally admitting that the 2010s were complete insanity.
Insane, all right?
Finally, we can answer questions like, what is a woman? Without having a circular definition.
Yeah, a woman is whoever identifies into a woman. What the heck of a definition?
Finally, we can admit that putting men in combat sports against women is not wise.
Yeah.
Men are now allowed to part their legs when they sit down, free from judgment.
Was that a problem?
No more Zer Zem pronouns.
Zer Zem. How about Buddy Bunny Self? Do you remember that? Vampire Demon Self.
No more drag queen story hours.
Did they stop those?
Have the entire right celebrating. We have the left playfully reflecting on their past convictions. And
is she left? No, she's not. Oh no, that's a video about the left reflecting. Yeah, non-binary Muslim. No, she's pretty. I know her. She's pretty based.
And we even have the LGB telling the T to be normal. Ironic. So,
yeah, that's
did
what
we do it? Did we win the culture war? No.
No?
Actually, this is a sign of the right's defeat.
What? How?
Something that many, including myself, warned would happen if things continued the way they were going.
I wonder where he's going with this.
And in this video, I go over why that is and the actual political drive behind Woke 1.0's death. And if you enjoyed, consider subscribing. It helps the channel.
Man, Woke 2.0, is it?
I said in one of my earliest videos that a right-wing revolution was inevitable. By right-wing here, I actually mean anti-woke. My reasoning was as follows. With the left's mass importation of peoples from the third world, who, by themselves, tend to be very hostile to woke ideology.
That is true, by the way. A lot of Muslims, of course not everyone, but a lot of Muslims actually don't even want to hear it when it comes to like pride parades and stuff like that. So yeah.
The liberals signed their own death warrant. The woke left somehow believed that these people, known for their tribalism and religious extremism, would perfectly parrot the liberal worldview.
I think the reason why some elements in the left decided to pander to Islam and Muslims, and now it's a lot of lefties are like that, I think it's because of their hatred towards white nationalists, particularly Christian nationalists, and so they thought, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but it did not work. It did not work, particularly because by allying with them, with this strategy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, well, their enemy are empowered women, independent women, and gay people. So what you gonna do then? Because those are also voters of yours, and now, not all of them, of course, we know that. And so now it's a problem, because it looks like a betrayal, and it is a betrayal.
They didn't, as should have been obvious. This means that as the third world population grows in the West and becomes a decisive voter bloc, they would turn on the woke liberals who enabled them and try to impose their own worldview.
So basically, interesting. Of course, they're not gonna vote right, a lot of those. But if they're not voting left either, what do? He's right. They create their own political parties. That's what they do. It's true.
As, by the way, has already happened in several cities and states.
Yeah.
We're in a situation where many Western European countries will become minority European within only 1 to 3 generations.
That's terrible, by the way. And if anyone says, what do you mean it's terrible? Well, would you say it's terrible if Africa or Asia, like a Southeast Asian country or an African country, had this kind of situation? It'd be like, well, it's going to be a minority black by 2040s, or it's going to be minority Asian. Sorry, guys, it's going to be a bunch of white guys now. You would say it's terrible. You would say extermination. So it's terrible also when it happens to European, right? Because we're going to be, equal. We're going to treat people equally, right?
With most capitals already undergoing that switch, America has just a bit longer. On screen, you're seeing some of the
Okay, true, but the part where you say people with two Dutch parents becoming a minority in Amsterdam. Holy moly. I thought he was talking about the language, because that's a meme in the language community, in the language space. But no, he's talking about, goodness gracious. Again, anyone is free to marry whoever they want, but a severe, significant modification of the general ethnic and cultural makeup of a country has massive repercussions onto the culture. It just happens. The laws, and so, yeah.
America has just a bit longer. On screen, you're seeing some of the statistics on this,
Fertility
caused by
rates.
a mix of low fertility among locals due to both cultural factors and economic policy,
Right.
and the unrelenting immigration numbers, as well as the high fertility among foreigners due to their own distinct culture.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think what governments should do in Europe and the West in general, they should reduce immigration. They should increment the birth rate of their own citizen. And of course, we know they tried with the economic incentives and they don't work. But I don't think that. I think you should still do it. You should still do economic incentives, but then on top of it, you need something else. You need two layers. I don't know what the second layer is supposed to be, but you need two layers, one of which is the economic, but that's not enough, particularly if there is so much propaganda out there saying, oh, you shouldn't have kids, kids bad, abort all your kids, make sure that no white couples, like there is, so you need counter propaganda basically at that point. You need to make sure that people understand how beautiful it is to have a family.
And being the beneficiaries of the West's disastrous welfare policies.
Of course.
Therefore, if things continue as is, the West will be remade in the third world's image within the coming decades.
Right.
Naturally, that means there are only two broad political positions that still matter.
Okay.
Either A, the third world, or B, the dissident right, who oppose their presence and the current establishment that enabled their mass importation. Everything else is secondary until this is resolved.
Right.
And regardless of who
A crusader.
win in such a situation, they will be anti-woke. Given these options, where does that leave the left? The average woke leftist has three paths laid before them. Path 1, they can stay woke. They don't recant their beliefs, they continue to push LGBT, neo-pronouns, feminism, etc. unapologetically. Force it in schools, at the workplace, in movies, desperately trying to spread propaganda with every institution they still control to see if their numbers can grow enough.
That's exactly what they've been doing, 100%.
But they won't. And they'll start losing more and more to non-woke leftists or right-wingers until they become irrelevant.
Yeah.
And when the power struggle between the distant right and the third world really begins, they will be the first to be gotten rid of, effectively making this option an act of self-destruction.
I wish you would have explained this a little more as to why you say that, but interesting. Because again, one of the things that people from certain countries do is that they sometimes pretend to be allies. So they are not, but they pretend, just until they gain power.
That's always been the woke leftist specialty, so maybe they might go with it.
Yeah.
Path 2, they become based. A niche but increasingly common option these days, a lot of woke leftists have attempted to rehabilitate themselves, dropping their pro-immigration stance and some of their more insane cultural values.
Yeah, like abolish the police.
And then replacing it with nationalism. The combination of their economic policies with their newfound nationalism makes them oddly and perhaps deliberately similar to certain 20th century ideologies. It's rare because so much of leftist programming is about abhorring those certain 20th century ideologies, but it does happen. Generally, these people are treated by the distant right with suspicion, but they can't afford to be picky.
Yeah, it's definitely better than the crazy woke. I'll take that, honestly. Yes, I'll take that. Like, we can discuss economic policy if you want. Totally. But, yeah.
Their allies. So the distant right tolerates these based leftists, despite many believing that socialist policies are still innately subversive.
Right.
Nationalism, however, remains non-negotiable. The moment one of these rehabilitated leftists starts advocating for something that sounds like civic nationalism, that is the belief that a nation is defined not by its people, but rather by the state bureaucracy, they're politically exiled.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange that in these days, people use nationalist as an insult. I really don't understand it, because nationalism should be the default of every nation. Like, citizens of the nation should support their own culture, their own history, their own country, and then they can choose to like or dislike politicians and specific values or positions, left, right, or center thereof. But this idea that there are so many people in the West, and this is a cause of propaganda, that hate their own nation, like they hate America. How can an American chant death to America? I will never understand it. It's unbelievable. But it has to do, in my opinion, it comes from the hatred for your own race. I mean, if they manage to push that, the self-loathing whites, then of course they're going to also hate their nation as a result of that. Oh, the imperialism and all that shit. I just don't get it. It should be default to support your nation.
Path 3. They become a woke 2.0.
That's it, yeah.
Woke 2.0 is a term coined in recent statements by high-profile leftist politicians, and it's being marketed as a less insane version of wokeness that puts...
But doesn't that kind of agree with the anti-woke? Because the anti-woke have been demonized. Like, whenever I make a video and I'm disagreeing with a leftist, particularly on matters like that, there's a bunch of YouTubers making videos about me saying, oh, what a grifter, are you anti-woke? Are you anti-woke? Cringe. That's what they do. But if you're woke 2.0, you're agreeing with the anti-woke that woke 1.0 was insane, which it was. So how does that work? Are you going to say you were wrong?
Less emphasis on cultural causes like the LGBT, while maintaining the same economic policy and pro-immigration stance. That's the main difference between the previous option and this one. The previous option is loyal to their own nation and wants to bring about their supposed socialist utopia for their own people, recognizing that unlimited immigration makes the welfare state unsustainable.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, this option is still globalist. Effectively, it's attempting to signal to the third world faction that the left are their allies and that
you're gonna have to push source. Yeah, source. Now watch the little LGBT guy come on up here. 100%.
They're willing to abandon the positions that the third
I knew. Oh, got shot.
world doesn't like. When people saw leftists,
I gotta listen to that again.
And that they're willing to abandon the positions that the third world doesn't like.
Yeah.
When people saw leftists admitting the death of woke 1.0 and calling it crazy, they thought that the right won the culture war. That is false. The third world won the culture war.
That's a very interesting perspective. Did it though?
Not the right. And what does the third world faction actually want? It's varied because they're not homogenous.
Very good. Yeah, exactly.
But they have enough...
See, that's a fair statement to make.
...actually want? It's varied because they're not homogenous, but they have enough aligned interests to be considered one political bloc for the time being. They want more immigration to continue so that they can continue to bring over their communities. They want more state welfare for them, more public housing, more gifts from the national treasury. After all, it's not their money they're taking to pay for these amenities.
Taxes.
It's the locals' taxes.
Yeah, it is. I wish my taxes didn't go to that. I wish my taxes went to help local Americans. That's what I would want.
Their own tax contribution is often net negative. The third world...
Isn't it funny when they try to justify... I saw this discussion debate with Michael Knowles, and at one point Michael Knowles did this trap, and he did it very well. He was saying, well, yeah, but also if people come here illegally, they don't pay taxes. And then he did it on purpose because they were trying to discuss whether or not it is a crime to cross the borders illegally, and there were the people defending the open borders, free flow of people. They were trying to say it's just a misdemeanor, it's not illegal, so they're not criminals, it's not a crime. And then Michael Knowles was saying, well, but they don't pay taxes, do they? And then these guys said, no, they do actually. And so this is when he destroyed them, because then he said, well, then they are criminals. And he quoted the federal law, because in order to be able to pay taxes, they need to steal a social security number. It's like it's illegal. And so he got them, and it was beautiful to see.
Also wants to be able to enforce their own rules in their communities.
Sharia law.
Free from outside interference, which is why leftist politicians placate them by having two-tiered law enforcement and judges that are significantly more lenient with them than the locals.
Which is absolutely abhorrent. There should be no two-tier policing, but in the UK, where they deny that they have two-tier policing, while at the same time saying we want equity of results. Equity of results means that you have to manipulate the way you intervene in any given scenario in order to make sure that even completely different situations end up having the same exact result. And that's insane. So for instance, well, we'll be lenient towards this person, even though they did commit a crime. Let's do 100 days of community service instead of 10 years of prison. And you're like, but how are they getting that equity of result. Well, one is a white guy. What did they do? He threw a rock in the window of a pub when he was drunk, and then you have an illegal immigrant. What did he do? Oh, he raped a 10-year-old. Equity of results. And then they wonder why people explode. So people explode, and then they point the finger and tell you racism is growing because of the far right. No, it's because of this. It's because of two-tier policing and injustice. If anything, I am all for equality, treat everyone equally, and of course, if someone is illegal, kick them out. But at this point, if you really were going to go for two-tier, it would make more logical and moral sense to be two-tier in the sense the people from your country and citizens are treated better, if we're going to go that way. Personally, I'd say everyone is equal under the law. But if you're going to go that way, the fact that you're supporting the illegals over the citizen, while saying, well, the illegals have been here since the Paleolithic, which is not true, then at the same time you're saying white people don't exist, white culture doesn't exist, and then they say, don't say Anglo-Saxons, Anglo-Saxon was not unit. It's unbelievable. It's a mess. It's a mess.
They want to see more of their own in positions of power and authority. And lastly, they don't want to see LGBT flags or pride parades or anything of that sort.
Right.
Which is why leftist politicians have been so keen on no longer bringing that stuff up.
I think there are some exceptions to this. Like, for instance, well, there are plenty of mayors of multiple cities who are foreigners, foreign nationals, foreign born, or sometimes they were born in the UK, but they never assimilated. And mayor of London, I think at one point was Muslim, wasn't he? Not assimilated, completely not assimilated, while at the same time screaming racist and far right to the local people. And when it comes to New York, he pretends well, doesn't he, Mandami? Because he does the little flag still. I wonder how long that's going to continue for.
The modern-day leftist campaign strategy for any place that has a large immigrant population is to simply put a foreigner from their ethnicity as the candidate, and just promise all sorts of free stuff paid for by the taxpayer. That way, they get the left-wing vote.
Is he foreigner, though? I think he's American-born, just for precision's sake.
And the immigrant vote, which is usually able to win any urban election.
Right.
And all it costs them is having to not bring up the principles they've been championing for half a century.
Mm-hmm.
But understand, for many, this was the plan all along. The leftist leaders knew this would happen when they imported the third world. I find the alternative hard to believe, that some of the most powerful people on the planet were completely ignorant and blindsided by the third world's values.
No, they're not oblivious to it.
In truth, there was no culture war in the 2010s. There was a culture feint. While we were too distracted trying to argue what a woman is, or the fact that men shouldn't be competing against them in sports, one of the largest and most consequential demographic changes in history was taking place. And people were too busy seeing it as just one of a myriad of issues.
And it's crazy because the only reason why they're doing it is to shift voter blocks. It's really, it's influencing the voter dynamics in given population clusters among various states or regions and countries, at the expense of everything: women, empowerment, all of that stuff, gay people, gay rights, all of that. It's expensive that they don't care because they get more votes this way. It's all about the votes. That's what it is. But they're gonna, and they don't care who pays for this. They really don't.
This was a war won without a fight.
Right.
And notice how naturally the champions of the 2010s wokeness have abandoned their causes, the ease with which they call their former positions crazy.
Yeah.
Leftist politicians didn't stop being woke 1.0. They never were. They simply took on the facade that would get them elected and their agenda pushed.
True.
Because that's what a politician is. And their voters should have been aware. The woke crowd is no longer...
It's just that their voters have been manipulated tactically. They manipulate your emotions. They tell you, but look at these poor third worlders. They ran away from their home and they are scared. They just want a place. They just want to live. They just want to live here, which, by the way, for a percentage of that is true, but they mean it for everyone else. And the real question would be at that point, what are they running from? And they can never answer that question.
As relevant as it used to be. And a new demographic of voters have taken over their role as the base of leftist political support.
Right.
The liberal then was just a useful stepping stone in pursuit of this outcome.
Well, to them, yes, of course. And you see, what's insane is that it would shatter the illusion to show them where how these people actually think. And sometimes the illusion is so strong that we have seen liberal leftist women moving to whatever the heck, one of these Islamic countries, and then getting beheaded because they thought Hamas was champions of LGBTQ. And this grin, this face, it's an excellent representation of how much they don't care about that.
Now, his job is done, and his services are no longer required.
Wow. Any other... Let me see if there is another video to watch, since this was well done. Feminism.
I once
Let's
had a
go.
teacher my classmates nicknamed Hitler for boys. If you were male and you weren't flamboyant, you could say goodbye to your GPA. Naturally, it was an English teacher, and she crafted a curriculum so that the literature we were forced to study was all explicitly feminist or racial and anti-white.
How, oh my gosh, how was she allowed to do that? When I was a teacher in school, I was given the curriculum. I didn't fabricate it.
Disagreement was permitted on paper, but not in practice.
Uh-huh.
The wisest choice for us was to exercise our right to remain silent whenever possible, because everything we said would be used against us.
Oh my God.
Coupled out of the endless deceitful lectures about how women are paid less for the same job, how the future is female, how white men run the world and we were somehow at blame for everything, even though we were still students, and schooling became nothing
ethnically, you're to blame genetically. That's the thing. So the white DNA means evil.
more than a humiliation ritual.
Yeah.
And before you ask, yes, she had terrible relationships with the men in her life, and she made the boys in her class pay for it.
Exactly.
This story isn't unique. Every man of my generation can tell you of at least one example of why he was targeted for no reason other than being born the wrong sex, while being lectured on how he deserved it because historically men had power and allegedly misused it. And he's somehow guilty of that.
Unbelievable.
But that's only scratching the surface.
Man, collective guilt is so evil that I don't see how people see it. Instead, people see it as a good thing. You need to stand up and apologize. You know, do you remember? Because it's crazy how this type of ideology is so pernicious that it will end up creating self-defeating monsters. Like, I remember when the lady died because there was the shooting with ice. You remember the lady in the car? And I remember this leftist woman crying about it, and she was like, oh, ice are murderers. But then she caught herself, and she's like, but I shouldn't cry, should I? Because it was a white woman who died. So it's wrong of me to cry when there are so many POC that have to deal with this. What? The race says if you deserve to be... What?
Some argue that schooling has been crafted in such a terrible way that it is functionally designed to disadvantage boys, decrease male academic performance, perpetuate misandry, and ruin Gen Z's ability to have relationships.
Oh, it's pronounced misandry? I always pronounced it misandry. Let me know in the comments.
And in this video, I cover those reasons, and if you enjoy it, consider subscribing, it helps the channel.
Right.
Imagine yourself back during your primary education, with an adult lecturing at you endlessly for hours while you were expected to sit still and pay full attention. This would be unreasonable even for an adult, but much less a child, especially if that child was a boy.
Yeah.
Both boys and girls struggle in such a situation. But for boys who are hardwired for spatial and mechanical activities at that age and have increased drives for adventure,
Makes
it's
sense.
flat out a biological obstruction for most. Trapped in such a circumstance, boys of strong imaginations escape by daydreaming.
That'd be me.
Whereas those without mess around or find other small ways of entertaining themselves. Either way, the boys fall behind and often get into trouble. Instead of recognizing the absurdity of modern schooling and reform, it's easier for educators to just blame the boys, punish them until they submit, and in extreme but increasingly common cases, give them ADHD prescriptions.
Oh my God.
When they're called out for this, educators often point to their female students, showing their superior results as proof that the issue lies solely with the student.
Man, these educators they are traitors. That's what they are. Traitors.
This defense is pure blank slate ideology,
Of course.
the dominant but debunked belief that men and women are effectively the same and need equal treatment. And until recently, no one contested it. We know boys are artificially held back because despite their worst start, by 16 to 18, boys catch up on standardized tests like the...
Yeah, not to mention there is a difference in development, like the way the male and female, I use the forbidden words, develop. It's different range, different They excel at different things.
SAT, and pull ahead in math and at the high end of STEM, while their GPAs, shaped by their predominantly female and often political teacher subjectivity, often stay lower.
They should be fired. Teachers, politics should be personal, private for a teacher, not something you push in class as a propaganda, that we are doing the 20th century regimes again.
In all of this, girls got a front row seat to see boys consistently fail, get punished, and fall behind them. They're praised as being smarter for doing well in school, when in reality they're just being less troublesome and more agreeable.
Right.
Think about the impact this has shaping a young girl's worldview. The boys are stupider troublemakers, whereas the girls are smarter and responsible. It perfectly conditions them for later feminist propaganda.
That's true.
The type of propaganda that, as I will explain later, kills people's abilities to have relationships and form families.
Which is probably what they want all along.
Therefore threatening the long-term survival of civilization itself.
Only white civilization, I'd like to underline. And yeah, the nuclear family.
Which is why today's sponsor is The Book, the ultimate guide to
Oh yeah, the book. They sponsored me once. 1 second.
rebuilding civilization. It's an illustrated encyclopedia of humanity's inventions and discoveries, which may soon become very useful if the West continues its path of social self-destruction. It's a global bestseller that walks you through some of the most important. It's a promo code LOGIC for a 10%
Promo code LOGIC for 10% off, mate.
discount. And now, back to the video. Do you remember mansplaining or manspreading?
Oh, yeah.
Manspreading is when a man sits down and parts his legs.
No, that I don't remember. I remember explaining, yes. Oh my gosh, there is a communist officer in the back.
For obvious reasons. It's still wild that this was an actual point of contention in the culture war. And mansplaining is when a man dares to explain something to a woman. Feminists noted that men do this often, with enthusiasm, which they interpreted as being condescending. Here's what they missed, or intentionally ignored. Men bond by explaining how stuff works, whereas women generally have a preference for talking about people.
Right.
By making explaining things to a woman taboo, feminists effectively made it difficult for men to bond with women in their instinctive way.
You know, it's true, but what's funny is that they made it taboo for a male, to explain something to a woman, but then you've got a lot of transgender women who are now explaining to a woman what a woman is, which is, once again, mansplaining. But now they can't say anything about it because transphobic. Man, what a tactical move. Holy moly.
But what was far worse was the MeToo era, and how it infected every part of schooling. Teachers treated every male student as a possible would-be harasser, and thought it would be their duty to terrorize their students into never acting in a way that could be seen as creepy. On top of that, since "Believe all women" was the slogan of the time, female students
Believe all women, unbelievable. How about proof with evidence?
were seen as the infallible judges of male students' characters. If one thought you were creepy, then you were.
Holy
Mess up
moly.
an approach? Now you're a creep and everyone knows it, and you'd be lucky if you weren't recorded and posted online for clicks. There was also the issue of malicious women. Since we pretended that all women were honest victims, malicious ones had free rein to do as they wish.
Right.
False accusations, gossiping, reputation destruction all became commonplace. Even male teachers began to refuse being alone in the same room as female students. Boys flat out stopped asking girls out, or in some cases, even talking to them. The irony was that
Man, he's talking about the what would you call it? Incel genesis?
at the same time feminists were terrorizing boys, most of whom had never even had the courage to ask their girl out, they were supporting the mass importation of peoples known for exactly the crimes they claimed to want to avoid.
True.
This was never about protecting women. It was about demoralizing men. And
yeah, you already know it wasn't about protecting women. They put them in a ring to fight against a man who identifies as a woman.
it worked. There was also other propaganda, less aggressive than MeToo but still impactful, such as the gender pay gap. The routinely debunked but endlessly cited claim that women are paid less for the same job. I remember posters of this
I haven't seen the data for that, so I haven't got a clue. If you guys know, let me know in the comments.
in every classroom. Teachers forced us to do projects on it, and we had assemblies discussing it. Extensive
projects.
initiatives were taken to fix this
What a waste of time. Teach them how to pay taxes at this point and look for a job.
imaginary gap. Girls were given broad academic support in the form of women-only scholarships, glowing recommendations, and recruiting quotas. Meanwhile, men were stuck with only mixed scholarships and the consequences of those quotas, pushing them lower in the rankings.
I imagine this depends on the country.
These initiatives were also present in universities and the workplace,
Right.
encouraging the hiring and promotion of women just because they were women. And we needed more female empowerment. The result? Young women today are often both hired and paid more than men for the same job. In other words, they solved an imaginary gap caused by imaginary discrimination by creating an actual gap caused by actual discrimination.
You know, how about we bring back meritocratic pay? How about that? It's like, oh, you're the best one at the job, you get paid more. That's, you know, crazy. Metatron, come on. What are you on about? Are you some kind of extremist?
The end result of all of this was a system that taught girls that men are stupid, unintelligent troublemakers,
Right.
filled with entitlement, and whatever power they do have, they got at women's expense. In the workplace, men are seen as inferior, hired less than women, paid less than women, promoted less than women, and less deserving of respect.
Right, but that's changing because now it's pushed onto the if you're two-spirited. If you're two-spirited or identify transracial now is a thing, by the way, transracial. So you identify as a different. If you do that, then you get some positions that are specifically designed for you. And so if someone else is not that, you're not two-spirited. Are you just straight? What are you doing here? Just get out of here. Get out of my office.
Women were also
wanna
taught
see
that the
you.
institutions were their allies, would elevate them and bring about social justice. Meanwhile, men were taught that women are dangerous and
More like a social injustice.
have no accountability. They learned that institutions were their enemies that would tear them down for someone else's benefit. Does it make sense now, even when ignoring the impact of technology, why men and women are no longer having relationships? Why there is such open hostility between the sexes?
Right.
And Gen Z is one of the most politically divided generations in history.
That's terrible. In history, though? Man, that's crazy.
How are we supposed to have families together and continue civilization when one sex is taught since childhood that the other is automatically stupid, unworthy, and the cause for all of society's problems?
As always, the problem is don't teach hatred and hateful rhetoric to the kids. You know? Maybe we could do that. Thank you for watching.